And welcome to Rock, Paper, Swords, the historical action and adventure podcast. My name is Matthew Harffy.
And my name is Justin Hill.
And it's wonderful to have you here, Justin. And it's wonderful for everybody out there to be there. I'm hoping it's wonderful for them to be there. It's nice that you've joined us anyway. And if you'd like to support us and help us with the podcast, there are plenty of ways to do that. First, you could tell a friend and tell your family to listen to us. You could like and subscribe wherever you are. If you're listening to this on Spotify or watching it on YouTube or on any other podcatcher or whatever they're called, piece of app software to listen to podcasts, there'll be a way of clicking a like and subscribe. So do that so that we pop into your feed every couple of weeks when we drop a new episode. And if you are feeling really generous and you want to get extra bonus content, then you can sign up to Patreon. The link, of course, is in the show notes, show description as ever. But I will tell you anyway, it's patreon.com/rockpaperswordspodcast. And if you feel like you don't want to subscribe and get all these bonus episodes and all other nice perks, but you just want to drop us a tip or buy us a beer, buy us a coffee because you love us and you want to help us support us in our endeavors to produce this wonderful podcast, then you can go to coffee.com, and that's ko-fi.com/rockpaperswords. And there you can just give us a tip and a little note, and we'll give you a shout out if you do that. And in fact, people, of course, who sign up to Patreon, we'll give them a shout out too. And we love you all.
And don't forget, we love 5-star reviews. So if you enjoy the podcast, then feel free to go ahead and tell other people what you think and help grow the podcast and share it with your friends.
Yeah, and if they're great reviews, we might even read them out because we like flattery. Flattery will get you everywhere. Well, maybe not everywhere, but it will get you somewhere. And if you write really horrible reviews, we probably won't read you out. But, feel free if you hate us to say something terrible. But I hope that's not the case. Anyway, moving on from all of that stuff, it's a new episode. And today we've got a guest. He's waiting in the wings, actually. So we'll bring him in very soon. But how was your day, or how's your working week been, Justin?
Yeah, it's been good. I started slightly worried because I was gardening on Saturday and I was digging out a big climbing rose from the apple tree. And I was grabbing it and I got a thorn right into the joint of my index finger.
Ouch.
Yeah, and I often get splinters. But then Saturday night, my finger started to swell up. And I tried to get the thorn out, but it's deep in the joint, which is very hard to squeeze a splinter out. So I was a little worried Monday morning because my finger was still very swollen and stiff, whether I'd be able to type properly. But I seem to have managed, and it's slowly going down. So
wow.
Yeah, I've been cranking out the words. I've just hit 75,000 words, and I still feel I'm in the beginning. So.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
that's always fun.
So I don't know if I've just gone slightly mad. Sometimes you just get carried away. And I keep adding more storylines to this novel. So we'll see. I had another one today, actually. Yeah.
I can sympathize with that. I've been in similar situations myself.
Have you started?
I keep on threatening to start. This week I did start, but it was very much, I think it was almost a symbolic start for me because I feel like I need to, start making a move. I did do a few lines of writing in Getafe, in Madrid, in the little notebook that gave me in Getafe, and I actually in the archaeological museum in Madrid, I took some notes. So I started writing basically just stream of consciousness, really, beginning of a chapter. And so I transcribed that, but I also wrote another, 600-700 words of what could become the first chapter potentially of the book. But I haven't had a chance really after that to actually do any more real writing. So I'm still in that planning stage. And today I spent a couple of hours still planning and breaking down story and characters and fleshing out the storyline of the plot and trying to understand where it's going. And I've now got a document of about 4,000 or 5,000 words of sort of synopsis and character descriptions and questions that I need to answer. And I'm also using Eon Timeline to sort of put all that into a timeline. So I did it all in the timeline first. then I exported it all. I've started writing it all freehand in Word, and then I'm going to sort of carefully paste it all back into the timeline and sort of reorganize things. And so I'm sort of fiddling around, but I'm very close to properly starting because I can feel the beast breathing down my neck.
And there's 4,000 words. I mean, that's quite a hearty chunk of novel.
It's a chunk, but it's none of it's really novel. It's all just description of like, and then this happens, and then he goes here, and then he meets so and so, and he investigates this. It's basically just plot points.
Okay.
So I think most of my books are quite plot heavy, character driven, but plot heavy. And I don't know why that is, but that seems.
Have you come across that video by the writers of South Park, where they talk about how to plot a story?
No.
Oh, it's brilliant. We'll put it in the show notes.
You've just gone wonky.
So I have. This is my new
your camera.
It's my new camera.
The wonky donkey camera.
This may do a couple of times during this. It sticks onto the computer screen.
It was like a clever edit. So, whoop. So like I've done that.
Yeah, this could be a disaster. So they have a video, really good, and they say if you have a scene where you have a character, a plot point, and then you have, if you can put the words "and then" between two plot points, so this happens and then this happens and then this happens, that gives you a really flat story because it's quite predictable. And they said they came up with two words, but or therefore. So this happens, but this happens. Therefore, this happens. So there's a kind of a bit more tension between the plot points. I found that really useful.
That is really useful. I'm going to go back when I get a chance. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow because I'll be editing this and I've got other things on. But probably Monday morning, when at the time we're recording this on a Thursday, when I get back into the saddle of writing, I'm going to be going. And my plan was, to sort of clean up what I've done and then to maybe start writing that week, next week. So I will go and look at what I've done so far, and maybe over the weekend, even if I get a chance to have a look and do change, anywhere I can say and then. Because there are a few and thens I can think of already, but there's definitely a few buts or therefores, because there are it's a whodunit sort of thriller type thing. So he's investigating and finding out clues, and therefore he discovers such and such a thing, but something happens, and so there are lots of buts and therefores. But I think I could maybe make it a bit more exciting.
Yeah, I think it's probably something we do naturally because we're just used to stories. But I came across it when I was writing Viking Fire, and I was like, oh my God, this really helped just tighten the whole thing.
That's it. I'm thinking, it's not going to change things drastically, but it's a little bit of tightening where you think, actually, it's a boring transition. In fact, I was already doing it just the last sort of part of the day that I was reading through what I'd written, and there'd be a couple of scenes that I'd added, and I'd kind of highlighted and said, these are scenes that I think need to be there. I don't know where. And I'd kind of moved them around when I was reading through it, because where they came, it was kind of predictable or boring, you think, okay, this needs to go somewhere else. So suddenly throw a spanner in the works and something happens, maybe a bit of action or something. So it's not flat, so you got these spikes of action and things happening rather than lots of action and then nothing for a long time and then a lot of action. But it's all fun. And at some point I'll sit down and properly start writing. But
and when are you delivering it?
Not until next June.
Okay,
so I've got a long way off. It's a long way off, but there's plenty in between. I keep on thinking every day. I think, oh, now I've got a full week ahead of me, no problems. But then my daughter's car broke down. Then we had a whole day off to go to London to go and see a concert, which I have to mention. Actually, I went to see Benson Boone. Concert. Benson Boone, young, amazing singer, which we all like as a family. So I went with my kids and my wife. All four of us went. And he's great, really energetic, does all these backflips, and while he's singing, I mean, he's incredible. He's an incredible singer. But the most amazing thing, in the encore, he did Bohemian Rhapsody with a full choir, and Brian May came out and played guitar.
Oh, fantastic.
And I was just like, this is just rockgasm for me. Honestly, my daughters loved Queen as well, and they loved it. They were absolutely over the moon. But they were videoing it, and you can hear them screaming and me just going, Brian! I knew when I saw them setting up for the encore, they were bringing on wedge monitors, and there'd been no monitors on the stage at all until that point, because they all use the in-ear monitors now, all these modern guys. And I thought, he's done he's done Bohemian Rhapsody before with Brian May back in the summer in Coachella in America. And so I thought, he's in London. This could be, it's the 50th anniversary of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
If Brian May's ever going to come out, it's going to be in London. And I thought, this looks like an old school guitarist, maybe is going to make an appearance here. And then lo and behold, old school guitarist steps out with his frizzy hair, the wizard of rock that he looks like. Now, he looks like Gandalf of metal with his flowing locks. That's amazing.
Yeah. He must be getting on a bit.
78.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was absolutely fabulous. Of course, he only stepped on to play a couple of guitar solos, and then he stayed on for the very final song, which was "Beautiful Things," which is Vince's most famous song, for the sort of final sort of number of the encore, and he played in that as well. And then they must have done. I mean, I wasn't videoing it or recording or taping it or anything, but it must have been about a good 5 minutes solid of just the ending of the last song, of them just keep whittling on guitar and making, just continuing, and just, I think the Benson is 23 years old, and he's obviously super excited. All the band was so excited, to have Brian May on the stage. They just were all loving it, and he got great reception, and that was brilliant, really good.
But that sounds fantastic.
Before we bring on our guest, there's one other thing I needed to say as well. But today, when we're recording this on the 6th, today is the release of Stephen A. McKay's book and my book, our co-written book, Swords in the Snow. It's come out today. So if anybody's listening and you haven't heard it or heard about it, or we did a podcast a while ago for the Patreons, didn't we?
Yeah.
And there's actually Patreons get to read it in advance as well of a certain tier, so they could get hold of it. But yeah, if you're interested in a novella co-written with me and Stephen A. McKay, check it out. Swords in the Snow. And I think you'll love it. Yeah. It's a nice Christmas story.
Perfect for these winter months. The night's drawing in. It was bonfire night yesterday.
My dog is terrified. Bonfire night is freaking him out. Yeah,
our dog
really hates it.
Are completely unfussed by it.
It's really strange. He's 7 years old now, and when he was about a year old, I took him to a reenactment with guns firing, because I thought I want to get him used to this, and he was fine. And he's been fine with fireworks and everything every year until about a year or two ago, and he suddenly just got terrified. So I don't know what it is with what scared him suddenly, but now he's very scared. Doesn't like it at all.
Poor doggy.
I know, it really is. I mean, shaking and panting and really having a bad time. Yeah, really not enjoying it at all. But I think it depends where you live as well. I mean, if your dog's more nervous, I mean, we've got houses around us. It's rural, but we're on the edge of a town. So there's quite a few people letting off fireworks. Ideally, I'd live in a totally rural place where nobody's doing it. But
yeah, that's true. Where we live is pretty rural.
He when he hears shotguns going off and stuff, he gets scared of that. I'm walking with him. If someone shoots a shotgun or there's some sort of noise, he'll look at me like, "Oh my goodness, what's happened?" and wants to run away. But he stays close to me and sort of looks nervous. But
Matthew, look after me.
Yeah, basically, look after me, Daddy. Keep me safe. But I'm going to pause the recording, and then we can introduce our guest and have a chat with him.
Today on Rock, Paper, Swords, we're joined by the one and only Michael Jecks, master of medieval murder, prolific author of more than 40 novels, and a man who's been killing people, fictionally of course, for 3 decades. From his long-running Templar series to his latest thrillers, The Piazza Murders and Ashes of Rebellion, Michael's got a knack for turning dusty history into deadly entertainment. We'll be chatting about knights, corpses, conspiracies, and how to keep a series sharp after 40 plus books.
Welcome to Rock, Paper, Swords, Michael Jecks.
Thank you, gentlemen.
It's great to have you here. And as we were just saying before we started recording, we did meet a while ago in person. Of course, I met you a couple of times over the years, but the most recently was in Devon in the Historical Novel Society. And
a short commute for me.
Yes, and we were sitting. I remember we were sitting in a nice break in the rain in that afternoon, on the Friday afternoon, having a few beers, and then probably on the Saturday we probably had a few more beers, and maybe on the Sunday, but we had a few beers and drinks.
It was a very hard weekend.
It was very difficult, but it was a lot of work as well. But it was wonderful to spend some time with you. And of course, then I was with the original Rock, Paper, Swords bald powerhouse, Stephen A. McKay. that obviously has been replaced.
Yeah.
Some might say upgraded, others downgraded. I cannot comment. You, Michael, you can comment as a guest, but I would never, dare.
I'm too much of a coward.
Yeah. Stephen will come
I
around.
don't know what's hidden
in.
underneath the hat.
Yeah, he's Glaswegian, so you'd be
Yeah.
you'd be in
He'll
trouble.
be down. He'll be down and beat you up. Anyway, he is still around actually, and we're just saying that today we've just released a novella together, Stephen and I, that we co-wrote, which is the first time I've ever co-written anything. And this is a question that isn't actually on the list of questions, but have you ever co-written and published anything?
Oh, yes. All of that lot.
Oh, okay.
And others too, yeah. I created a group, Medieval Murderers, many years ago, and we collaborated on a series of 10 books with a couple of publishers, well, Simon and Schuster actually, and they were really very interesting because it was the idea of taking each of our different periods. So there was Bernard Knight, who wrote about the 1100s, then Ian Mawson had the 1200s, I had the 1300s pre-plague, Susanna Gregory had post-plague 1300s, and then we had all sorts of token modernists like Chris Sampson and Karen Maitland and Philip Gooden. And it was very successful. The series kept going very nicely because what we were doing was taking a particular specific and then elaborating on that over each of our different periods. So the first one, for example, was it had an introduction with the siege of Jerusalem, and a sliver of the true cross was stolen from a church by a Christian, and it was cursed by the guard at the door, so that anybody who touched this little sliver of wood would die. And that was the beginning of this series of different stories. And they were discrete novellas, each of them. They were about 16 to 20,000 words, but we tied them all together to form one novel. And say there were 10 of them. They were very popular at the time. In fact, we all really enjoyed doing them. It was quite a nice rest to have something a little bit different to go back to. Ian Mawson always threatens that he's got a complete list of all of the emails that were created during that productive stage of our lives, and he's always threatened that he might blackmail us by allegedly he'll put them out in the open. But apart from that, I've also written with the Detection Club. I'm the on secretary there now, and we've had a number of things like the Sinking Admiral, and we've done a book on how done it rather than who done it. And yeah, so I've collaborated a few times. It's good fun. It's nice to have someone else to bounce ideas off. I've actually only recently finished a modern day collaboration with a delightful lady, and I can't say who or anything because we haven't placed it yet, but with luck we'll place that next year. And it's a rollicking little crime story set around the world of opera, which it was enormous fun to write, and it was also quite an eye-opener for me. So yes, I still collaborate when I can because it saves an awful lot of the effort of thinking up a new plot, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I never understood Karen Maitland. She never had a series. She has recently, but she always used to work on the basis that by the end of the book she'd have killed off everyone. So how could you have a series?
Yeah. We know you are, though. Never that kind of book.
Well, it is the idea about a murder story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kill off as many people as possible.
So it does make it makes a change having to do all the work from having to do all the work yourself, I guess. And I mean, the thing that I've done with Stephen is shorter as well, so it was a bit easier and quicker. Although it has its challenges as well to put everything, to make it all work together. But
well, it's the translation, isn't it, from Glasgow?
That was the most difficult thing. Yeah, it's okay. I use ChatGPT to translate for him to English. But you've had two books out recently that I'm aware of. Maybe you could tell us if there's others. The Piazza Murders and Ashes of Rebellion, which sound quite different. Can you tell us about these stories and whether they're new directions for you or they return to something familiar?
Well, oh, truth.
Or he's standing up now. For those who are just listening to audio,
I've got a
Michael is
recall.
like, he's got Michael's got a wall of books behind him. And I mean, when I say a wall of books, I mean he's got
It's suitably chaotic.
hundreds of books, and it's chaotic. And I think lots of them, judging from where he is now, sort of looking around on the shelves, I think lots of them are Michael's books. And probably at some point, the whole lot's going to fall down and kill Michael.
It's trying to keep track of where you've put them. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 3.5 shelves with my books up here, which makes it a bit confusing. But yeah, this year I've published that.
Okay, Death Comes in Threes.
Yep.
Yep. The Piazza Murders.
And then I've republished.
Okay, yes, the Vintain ones, isn't it? So yes, so Fields of Glory, Blood. What is it? Blood on the Sand or Blood on the Sand
and Blood of the Innocents.
Blood of the Innocents. So that's the Vintain trilogy. Is that originally?
Sort of, except that's the 4th in the trilogy.
Yes. So now Ashes of Rebellion is the 4th in the trilogy, which is the most recent. Are they republished by? Is it Boldwood that republished those for you, or
next
is it
week that comes out?
Pilgrim's War next week. So is that Boldwood that's republished those for you?
These
Michael?
are all Boldwood, apart from the first 2 I showed, which are Severn House. And what's happened is that this is book 9 in my Bloody Mary series, which is
right. So Death Comes in Threes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is the latest outing for my happily incompetent assassin in Tudor England, which I just loved writing. It made me laugh all the time I was doing it. And then Piazza Murders is the 3rd in my Art of Murder series, starring an artist who keeps stumbling over dead bodies, which is obviously what painters do quite a lot. But the nice thing is that this I wrote because I had to go to Italy some years ago. Oh, and it was some years ago, it was about 20 years ago, and took part in a festival in Piacenza. And I always wanted to go back there physically, but also mentally. So not having had an opportunity to get out there physically, I thought, oh, I'll do it the mental bit. So I've just gone back there. I went through all of the photos I took while I was out there and reminded myself of the different streets and locations and the restaurants and everything else, and formed it into this book, which luckily has been quite well received. I did a similar thing years ago with Act of Vengeance, when that was a modern day spy thriller, and I wrote that around 2002, 2003. That was based on the appalling travesty of justice that happened around Guantanamo and the rendition of so many people. And I was so disgusted with that I wanted to write a book about it. So I invented this concept of a rather hacked off English spy who had been one of the Russia team. And then, of course, when Tony Blair got into power and decided that after 9/11, there really ought to be a bit of a refocusing. So they went to lots of universities and hired all the cheapest young Arab speakers they could and brought them into MI5. So my ex-Russian chap was then moved into a team called the Scavengers, because they had to go around and clear up the mess by all these bloody morons. And that actually came about, or the locations for that book came about, because I just based it on various trips I'd taken to the States on signing tours. So I included Chicago, New York, Anchorage in Alaska, Whittier Bay in Alaska, San Francisco, just all over the place. And I could use the different locations that I remembered and bring them into the story. And Piazza is very similar.
Do you find yourself alternating between historical and contemporary, or do you have a preference?
I would say no, because whichever one I go to is actually a bit of a rest after the one I've just written. So if I can go from medieval to modern day, that's so much more relaxing, because I don't have to research it. The only bugger is that, in medieval times, I once had a story in my Templar series where I got to this point in the story where I thought, This guy has to get from there to there, but he can't get there too early because he'll find out that plot line before I want him to. Now, he didn't have a mobile phone, so that was good, but I didn't know how long it should have taken him to get from A to B. So in the end, I had a torrential downpour. The river rose. He couldn't cross the river, so he stayed in an inn for 2 nights. Worked.
Yeah.
But with the modern day book, you've got that damn problem that you really can't keep finding different parts, as I do daily with my mobile phone, where you can't use a mobile phone because that just doesn't work as a plot device anymore.
Well, North Yorkshire, I think you might find a few.
Well, I'm on Dartmoor. You try here that I can do it, but it doesn't work too well as I say, as a plot device with people who read it for the third time in a different book. But medieval stories I like. I'm actually going back now. Pilgrim's War was set all around the First Crusade, and I'm just revising all of my researches into the First Crusade because the next book, which I've got to submit early next year, is going to be about the arrival at Jerusalem and the siege of Jerusalem. So that's going to be a slightly more harrowing one to write, I think it's fair to say, because that wasn't an exactly pleasant time for people.
Yeah. And how far ahead do you plan what you're doing? You have a kind of idea, or you have a kind of a load of different projects that you pick from?
Well, this is the trouble. I've got quite a few projects because I've got nearly 10 books in the Blackjack. I've got 32 in the Templar series. I've got my 5 now in the Vintner series. The 5th one comes out early next year. I've got the Holy Wars books. I've got other standalones. So it's a case of trying to keep my brain on track at any one time. And the main thing that does that is the contract with Boldwood, where they say, I want a book on this one about then. And they are real slave drivers. They're such awful people. But they're absolutely great to work with. In fact, the editor I've got there was a lady I worked with at Severn House for a couple of years, and I was impressed by her there. And clearly she didn't think I was a complete waste of time because she took me on when she went to Boldwood. But so far this year I've published quite a number of books. I've got to write and publish 3 more next year and 2 more the year after. And the 2 the year after are going to be returning to my Templar series. So that's going to be quite an interesting one to, again, revise all I can about my characters and what they were doing and so on. It's been a while since I've written a Templar series book.
So from
this is the trouble. I mean, Matthew, you must know this. You probably both do, but you put a book down, and the first thing you do is forget everything you put in the damn thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm starting a new book at the moment. It's in a different time and place than I've ever written about before, so I'm doing a lot of research. But to be honest, the previous book I wrote was book 11 in the series, and I felt pretty much as lost at the beginning of it as I do in this. Not so much of the context of the history, you sort of know a lot more, obviously you've researched more, but starting out, I was like, where the hell has this story gone? I can't remember, what's happened and who's gone where and who's alive, who's dead.
What the hell was that character doing in the first one?
Well, and I've written books in between, like you, and so it's like, I don't know, 2 years or something since I'd written book number 10, and so writing book number 11 was like, oh my goodness,
much faster than that.
Oh yes.
So do you have spreadsheets of characters' names and how they died and all that stuff?
No, I hate spreadsheets. I can't use them to save my life. No, it's a case of every time I just pick up one of the previous books, which are all there, and remind myself. What I used to be able to do, which was jolly useful, was with a lot of my books, I'd have a cast of characters on the front. And that was really handy. I could remind myself. Nowadays, of course, publishers prefer to keep the amount of ink per page to an absolute minimum. So they prefer not to have a cast of characters, which is irritating. But what I have got is at Boldwood, I've got a fantastic copy editor. Now, you don't hear authors say fantastic copy editor because, they tend to be trained by the Gestapo. But this one is superb. And every time I'm just trying to figure out where I've put the darn things. It's probably in that pile of rubbish there or that pile of rubbish there.
It's not a guy called Paul King, is he?
No, she's not.
No, she's not. Oh well, so
Helen.
I've had a couple of copy editors, but it was a guy called, I think it was Paul King, who copy edited most of my books. And the reason I ask is because I used to be edited by Caroline Ridding, who's now in Boldwood, so I wondered if there was a connection there. But he was great, and he still is probably. I'm not sure if he's done the very last of the series of the books, but he would give you a whole list of the characters, and he sort of the pronunciations.
Make a note about which ones died, which is really useful.
He was great. I remember because I published, a bit like you, that I republished the first couple of books that have been self-published, and then I carried on with the series. And so he did the copy editing of those. I think it was in book 4 or something. He suddenly went, "You've got a character here called, I don't know what it was, Ethelbert or something, some Anglo-Saxon name," and said, "Is this the same Ethelbert that appeared in book 1 in a scene in the in the hall in Bebenberg?" And I said, "What? I don't know." And I went back and looked at it. It's just like a random character, and it was like, "No, it's a completely different person." He said, "Well, maybe you should change the name because otherwise people might get confused and think it's the same guy." Good point. Although in real life, of course, there's lots of people called Steve and lots of people called Michael, but in books it becomes much more confusing. And if you've got lots of Michaels,
and it's difficult because you've only got a limited number of names you can work from. I mean, the number of Hughs I've had in different books. I did have a situation with one editor who was quite new to her role, I think, who said, "Look, you've got 3 Hughs in this book. Can't you just change all their names?" One was Hugh the servant to my main characters, who had already been in 20 books. No, can't change that. The other was Hugh Dispenser. He was a real man, can't change his name. And the other was his dad, Hugh Dispenser. No, can't change his name either. You do get these little difficulties. But a good copy editor is such a bonus. Doesn't matter which the publisher is, but the copy editor makes a huge difference and saves hours of effort. Which reminds me, I've got a copy editor I've got to work on. Oh no.
Well, you've mentioned loads of your books, and you're working with all these different copy editors and all the different people, and you've been writing, as we said in the introduction, I believe for more than 3 decades. You've written 40 plus books. So what's changed most for you over all those years? I think we asked you something similar probably last time you came on, but have you changed the way you write? Is it the way things are published, or is it the way that the readers consume books or discover books? What's changed most for you?
Interesting. I guess the most dramatic change for me is I always used to print everything out on paper and edit on paper. I tend to do that far less now. I tend to edit much more while writing, and I'll write it solidly for a very intensive 3 or 4 weeks, and then put it aside for at least a week, and then come back to it quite fresh and re-edit then, which does work quite well for me. In the past, I would always print out, because in the past I was normally contracted for 2 books a year, so it was a bit easier. You could print out a book and then edit at leisure. Nowadays, with 3 books, sometimes 4 a year, that's just not so practical. So I tend to do almost all my editing is now on screen. So that's changed. I used to spend a small fortune on red pens, always gel ink rollerballs, because they just seem to move more pleasantly across the paper than big bloody biros. So that's quite a change. But beyond that, I don't think much has changed really. I mean, with my very first book, I planned and plotted it out to the nth degree. I had a complete flowchart on A3 paper on my sitting room floor, several different sheets of it with, this guy's dead, this is one suspect, one suspect, one suspect. And I went through the whole flowchart of the story because I used to be in programming. And it became blatantly obvious to me about 40% into the book that it was so obvious to me who had done it, it'd be bleeding obvious to any reader who had done it as well. So in the end, I threw away all of that plan and then thought, well, who could have done it? And took the story on from there. And that's pretty much how my books have gone ever since. I start off with a scene or a theme, or just a location that appeals to me, or the idea of a particular murder that is appealing in some way. The method of the murder, the location of the whatever it might be, and then I see where the story takes me. I never know where it's going to go, and usually that's plenty adequate. That's enough. It's the nice thing about crime writing, though, is that you always have that hook of the murder itself. And a lot of my books, like these, are generally based on historical events. So I've got a timeline to work to. So when I was writing Fields of Glory, which was the march up to the Battle of Crécy, then with that, I had Froissart's Chronicles, so I knew exactly where each of the different bands were, all the way through from landing on the French coast, all the way through to the Somme and Crécy. So that was good. All I had to do then was throw in a spurious murder and some nasty sadists, which was quite easy, oddly enough, in those days.
Yeah.
I suppose the kind of publishing environment has changed around you.
Yeah.
And they've gone from being largely kind of paper-based, with the whole kind of self-publishing and the internet and kind of fan engagement. Have you embraced those, or have you kept pretty much to yourself?
I try to. I've got a YouTube channel. I on Facebook and embarrassingly enough, Twitter and Instagram and all those things. But I don't tend to do too much with them. I tend to put marketing, author blog type information out on Twitter and on Facebook. Every now and again, I'll throw a photo up of the dogs on Instagram. And I think people aren't always interested just in books. And I try to keep things going that way. But
You've got a Patreon as well, haven't you? You do something like
yeah,
fan engagement that way,
yeah.
which is good.
So I do that instead of an author blog. I'm actually talking with a friend of mine, Martin Edwards, about starting a podcast too. So you're not the only guys.
Okay.
And
Okay,
what do you
well,
find?
that's the end. That's the end of this. That's the
months.
end of this. Now we're going to cancel the rest of this conversation.
I say the trouble is we've been talking about this for at least 18 months and we haven't managed to get it together yet.
And what do you find is very popular on your Patreon for the?
Sorry, say again.
What do you find is popular for your patrons?
Well, most of the time, I've got 4 different tiers. So one of them is just general life events, straightforward blog. Next one up is for people who are interested in writing and therefore how I write, how different tools I use might help other people. And then there's 2 video types where I'm talking much more about the flow of writing that I'm in currently and other aspects of life, such as things that I'd normally keep quiet on the general internet. So book cover releases, I'll put them out there and so on. And I find Patreon, I must admit, really effective. It's I've got not that many people, but it's still better in terms of profitability than YouTube, where I've got thousands of followers. But it's just one of those things. It's trying to sort out what is time effective and what is cost effective in terms of profitability. And I've got the sort of brain that flits from one idea to another with the greatest of ease without ever landing and concentrating on one thing. So it gets quite interesting. Just I love all these different things. I do like the fan engagement. Something else I do is I work with the Smithsonian. They've got a division of the museum called Smithsonian Journeys, and one of their trips they do every year is the Mystery Lovers England tour, and I'm their resident expert for that. So once or twice a year, I meet 20 or 30 Americans, Australians, and others, and travel around the country with them, talking about Agatha Christie, Dorothy L. Sayers, all of the other chaps you can imagine, and how they wrote, how I write, how they could be motivated by locations and so on. And it's generally 1 week's worth of just talking about writing. And the response has always been very good. So that I've never been particularly concerned about putting myself in front of the public, and I used to be a salesman, so
Yeah,
it helps.
totally. But you mentioned writing there and saying about how you engage with all these people talking around about your writing and about other people's writing and the differences perhaps. And a lot of the people that listen to this podcast or watch the podcast on YouTube are writers, lots of aspiring writers or people in different stages of their career. And I know lots of them are really interested in the writing side of things. So what's one bit of hard-earned writing wisdom that you wish someone had perhaps told you 30 years ago?
Ooh. Somebody did tell me, it was my first agent, and when I delivered my first manuscript to her, she gave me several things that I needed to correct. One was never begin two succeeding sentences with the same word. Doesn't matter whether it's the, whatever, don't do it. Never have two succeeding paragraphs beginning with the same word. Doesn't matter what the word is, the, and so on. Those I've found really useful over the years. Stupid little things, but very important. I used to run the debut dagger for the Crime Writers Association. And when I was doing that, I compiled my own list of 10 things that you should do, which I dare say has fallen off the CWA's website at least 20 years ago by now. But the main thing I always said was, if you don't treat your manuscript with respect, no editor's going to either. And so always make sure that whatever you submit to an editor is the very best you possibly can. Because if there's typos on page 1, they are actively looking for a reason to reject. Because every editor's going to be receiving 10 or more manuscripts a day. They can't read them all. They can read the first couple of pages. If they see 2 typos, it's out.
I'm always surprised. I mean, I think that's great advice. I'm always surprised when writers that are already published and obviously already have a contract, so they're going to, they have to hand in a book. They say things, you see them on social media. I don't know how much of it is hyperbole and how much of it is real, but they say things like, I had to hand the book in on the 30th of whatever the month, 30th of June, and I'm writing away, and I finished at 11:05 at nearly midnight on the 30th of June. I sent it off, and I'm thinking, how on earth can you do that? For me, I have to finish the clean draft a couple of months in advance, and then I, like you say, set it aside and then read it and then fix it and tweak it and then maybe give it to some friends to read and get their feedback and tweak it a bit more, and then I send it very, very polished. And obviously they're going to find some mistakes in it, and my editors are going to find all sorts of bits and pieces.
Editors always do.
Copy editors, and even there might be some structural changes.
That's their life's point.
There'll be some copy editing and proofreading issues. But you, like you say, you have to send in the best quality product that you can. And I always send it in, and I always think this is as good as I can get it in the time that I've got available to me, and I think it's polished. And I'm always surprised when or always sort of slightly peeved when the editor comes back and says, have you considered maybe changing this, or did you think that this was the best that you could do? And I think, well, of course I thought it was good because I wrote it. I didn't think it was rubbish.
I'll let you see it. I wouldn't have let you see it if I didn't think it was good.
Yeah.
No, I did have one instance not that long ago where, I mean, you know what it's like. Every time you send off a manuscript, you get these glowing reports back from the end. Oh, this is wonderful. It's the best thing you've ever done. It's just magnificent, darling. And you couldn't possibly have written it better. Just a couple of points. And then you get a 40-page summary of different issues for the book. And I've always despised that. I don't need my ego stroked. I just want to have, does it work? Is this good? Are the characters strong enough? Is the plot strong enough? Okay, let's go with it. And I always say to any new editor, look, don't give me any fluff. I don't need the bullshit. Just, if it's good, tell me. If it's bad and it needs work, tell me. That's it.
Yeah.
And then one of these blasted editors told me that. Well, you did always say to me. And it was a huge relief because I knew from that moment on I could trust her.
Yeah, so what she's just saying back is that actually it needs work and it's not good enough.
Yeah.
And then, well, yeah, fair enough.
Which is good.
Yeah.
That's what you want to know, isn't it? You want honest.
Absolutely. And
the readers
have been working to hideous deadlines at the time, so she wasn't surprised, I wasn't surprised, but it made a huge difference that she felt she could be honest.
Yeah.
Mm. And you mentioned it was your first agent. Have you been through many agents and editors as well, I suppose, in such a long career?
Well, to be fair, I've only had one agent every 10 years or so.
Okay.
So I'm in my 32nd year of writing now, I think.
And have they retired, or you've moved on for a reason?
Moved on for different reasons. The first one I was with for about 15 years. She was wonderful. Jane Conway Gordon. She's still a friend now, but she was a single person in her agency, and she decided that pretty much she wanted to close things down. She wanted to retire. Fair enough. I went to Eddie Bell, but he had some kind of collapse or illness, so that was the end of that. And I went to Hardman and Swainson with Joe Swainson, who is just wonderful, just brilliant lady, very organised, very efficient. Sends money through at regular intervals, which is all we writers ever care about.
Yeah.
So yes, but when it comes to editors, yeah, that's more problematic. I've had let's see, Marion Donaldson, Andy Sisodia, Shona Wally. There was someone else who I'm afraid I made burst into tears, and she quit because she was raised and bred 5 miles up the road from me here in Devon. She had gone to university. She was working in London. She hated it. She had been in the job for 2 weeks, and I was just chatting to her over the phone about the weather down here, which was, to be fair, raining because it's Devon. And apparently she burst into tears and decided she had to come back down here. So it wasn't me giving her a hard time or anything. I was just chatting. So there was her, then I had another one, then there was a bloke. That's all the ones I had at headline. Then when I went to Fairman and Schuster, I had one lady who left before I
actually... Sometime later.
Put it like this, I think I'm now on something like number 25 editors.
But so there's a question there that I've spoken, because I've only been through a handful. I've been lucky, as it were. I've been lucky with all of my editors, and I've only maybe been through 3, I think. So it's not been very many. But have you? Because I also haven't changed publisher much. I haven't jumped around. I've been in the same publisher. I've been self-published, or I've been published by the same publisher. Maybe done little bits and pieces for others. But so I have spoken to other writers that have felt that they've really struggled, or their books have struggled to find success because they've been in that situation where they've been commissioned by one editor who loves them, and then they've left for different reasons, whatever reason, illness or retirement or whatever, and then they've been picked up by another editor, and their books have been kind of sidelined or ignored and not given the time that they deserved, perhaps. Is that a thing? And has that happened to you?
Their own stamp.
Yeah. So has that happened to you? And there's nothing really that I can think of that a writer can do to avoid that. It's just one of those things, just bad luck, isn't it? Yeah.
You can complain up the chain. Well, that's probably the kiss of death to your career if you do that. All you can do is try to make sure that you retain or maintain good relationships with the editor as far as you can, and try to make sure that you write books that are going to be successful, because if your books become successful, that reflects on the editor. They're happy. But I had one editor who was not particularly interested in anything to do with medieval work. He was handed my books because the editor before him had left, and he never really had any interest in them. So he worked on them. He was grimly and with gritted teeth. But he never really had much interest, and really from the moment I saw him, the sales plummeted. That's one of the reasons why I left and went to Simon & Schuster.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. I mean, if I still despise this concept that authors should be doing lots of work on Twitter and other social media, because as far as I'm concerned, there is a contract that says that the people buying your books are going to do all the marketing. And that's why you let them take the lion's share of the proceeds for all the sales up until 70 years after our death.
Yeah.
That's still a standard contract. And yet, more and more, you see that publishers do no marketing. One of my publishers, I'll not name them because they're bigger than me and they'd sue, but one of the publishers over 3 years with 3 books, the sum total of the marketing was 2 tweets. They didn't even put it on their bloody Facebook page when new books came out. Yeah, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
that's really the saddest element, I think, of modern publishing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's something that I've never really fully understood why. Because as you say, they're the ones that make the lion's share of the profit if things go well. So you think it would be within their, in their interest to do the bare minimum and do the best they could. I know that they're probably overworked and understaffed and all these sort of things, but you think,
No,
but they're not that busy that they can't do the bare minimum of doing some advertising. So I don't really understand.
The thing is, and you'll know this yourself, but if you look at most publishing houses, if you find any male, they're in the higher echelons. If you look at all of the people doing the work, whether it's marketing or editing or anything else, they're the slightly lower cost ladies. And almost invariably, it's vanishingly rare. I've had one marketing guy who was a bloke. I've had one editor who was a bloke. I say I've had 25 editors, I think. And I've certainly had, well, I couldn't count the number of theoretical marketing people I've had. But Boldwood's the first firm I've gone to, and it's so refreshing where if you look on their website and look at their staff, there's one guy in this sea of women. And the lady running the show, Amanda Rideout, she's a powerhouse. She's an old-fashioned editor stroke publisher. I think she started pretty much with Hodder and Stoughton and then went on to Headline. I'm not sure. But she's got a very tight team. They don't blow loads of money with office space. They all work from home. The marketing teams are incredibly efficient. For the first time in my life, I've actually had joint marketing meetings with sales and marketing. Never had that with any other publisher. And, I've worked with big publishers, but Boldwood are the first ones who have done that. And I'm now getting jacket briefings sent through. I'm getting draft jacket covers, everything that you would have had back in the 80s and 90s, but which is just fallen by the wayside with so many publishers. But I do think that there's much more of because so many senior managers are dyed-in-the-wool blokes who are considering themselves managers of a business that sells products. They look on books much more as being the investment capital of the business. So they will not, if they can possibly avoid it, allow authors to take back rights, for example, because even if the books aren't selling, they don't want the author to take back rights because, as far as they're concerned, part of the capital value of their company is the number of titles they own.
That's interesting. But talking about Boldwood, though, we've had a few Boldwood authors on over the last year or two, and of course, I know, as I said, I worked with Caroline, and Amanda was my I guess she was the head of the imprint that I first signed up for with Head of Zeus. But so they all left. And then they formed Boldwood. And there was a moment when I was, potentially going to go there, but obviously I was just signed a new contract with Head of Zeus and ended up staying. But got a close connection with lots of the writers and some of the staff there as well. So I only hear good things about them. They're obviously doing great. So
they are
more power to them.
Too.
I was going to ask you about you started out writing medieval mysteries long before the sort of resurgence of historical crime. I mean, there were some historical crime things back then, but it really has become a powerhouse over the last, I don't know, decade or two. And did you have any sense back then that you were sort of at the beginning of a new resurgence or a new wave of something?
I guess so. I mean, there was obviously Ellis Peters still.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Back then.
Like Brother Cadfael.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and they were great, but to an extent, and this sounds a bit arrogant, it's not intended to be. Well, maybe it was a bit arrogant. Fair enough. I was a 30-year-old computer sales rep who'd lost every job I'd owned, so yeah, I was pretty arrogant. And when I read her books, I was immediately blown away by the period, by the sort of detail that she went into with medicinal herbs and all kinds of different aspects of things. And I thought that was really good. But I felt always that her books suffered a bit because she made Cadfael out to be just a bit too nice.
Hmm.
This is a guy who was supposedly involved in the First Crusade. He'd joined the Pilgrims with the Siege of Jerusalem, and he would have seen some hideous stuff. And it never quite worked for me as a character. But that was, just my own personal view.
Hmm.
And it meant that when I started writing my own books, I really wanted to make sure that they were a little bit harsher, a little bit grittier, and also definitely grounded in accurate history. So it didn't matter whether that was the history of coroners, the keepers of the king's peace, the justices of jail delivery. It didn't matter whether it was what type of sword was used when, and all of those other little details. Because that's the trouble that people don't realize. They read a book and they think, oh yeah, well you've done a bit of research, but you got that bit wrong, and that just blows the whole story out of the water. Susanna Gregory, lovely lady, once had a letter from a guy who was reading one of her books, and he said it was brilliant all the way up until page 330, and you mentioned he got a silver penny. He said they didn't have a silver penny then, and he pointed out that the silver penny came in 1 month later. And it was signed by the president of the British Numismatic Society. And uh, she was always very committed to getting her facts right. So the next day, because she used to work at Cambridge, she saw that the local library had a sale on, and in there was the British Numismatic Society's book on coins of the medieval period. She thought, brilliant. So she spent, I think it was a huge sum of 99p or something on this dog-eared bit of rubbish. Got it home, owned it to the relevant pages, and some bastard had cut the pages out.
Oh no. Another historical author. One doesn't sell as well.
Sorry, better.
Yeah.
That's it is so difficult because you can do as much research as you want. I mean, one of the things I remember that made me absolutely potty for quite a lot of my early books was, would they, for example, in a church have had braziers or something to warm the church on a cold winter's day? I've checked with all sorts of historians, Nicholas Orme, who's an expert on the ecclesiastical and educational history of Devon, and he doesn't know. It sort of strikes me that they probably would have done, but I haven't got the faintest idea. Would they have had glass in certain upper class windows? Probably not in the 1300s, not anywhere. But I've always got that little doubt at the back of my mind that someone might have done, like Bishop Stapledon, for example. What sort of houses would have had something like tiled floors or wooden floors? Don't know. I mean, it's much easier for me because I've always tried to concentrate on writing about people like me, what I would have been like in those days. All these people who say, "Oh yeah, I believe in reincarnation because I used to be Bonaparte or I used to be Josephine." Nah, no, they weren't. One of them was the scavenger cleaning up the dog shit from the side of the road, and the other one was probably hanged when very young for nicking a loaf of bread. And I'm happy to say that I was probably one of the scavengers cleaning up the turds. That's the sort of thing I'd have been good at. A dunny diver in
Well,
the best bits of Exeter.
it's clearly the best way to, the best point of view for a story.
Well, apart from anything else, you can always be guaranteed of a job in that sort of work, can't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But from the point of view of most readers, I think everybody can read books about what it was like in the court of Henry VIII or what it was like for the wealthy bishops of wherever it might be. But I was always much more interested in the life of the ordinary peasants because
Yeah.
I think they're as interesting, if not more so. And that's
Yeah.
good because it means I can just talk about packed earth floors rather than worrying about were they tiled or did they have any sort of rug on the walls as tapestries? No, they bloody didn't. They didn't have the money.
Yeah.
But
So
things like, for example, one of the things I do like is doing research on the hoof. And a place that I love to keep going back to is the Weald and Downland Museum.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Yeah, it's just fabulous, isn't it? And you go
Yeah.
inside the Bailey farmhouse and you see really what it was like. And
So for anyone listening or watching who hasn't or isn't aware, the Weald Downland Museum is a large open air museum where they've taken buildings, usually which are going to be destroyed for some reason, or they're falling into disrepair, or they're going to.
it's when they were going through a period of building lots of reservoirs in the southeast.
Yes,
And they had lots of ancient farmhouses and so on. They took them apart brick by brick and brought them in to rescue them.
Yeah, and then they rebuild them perfectly, and I think they've also got some animals from the period and all this sort of stuff. So it's brilliant because you get a real feeling for what the houses are like in different medieval periods.
And many people will have seen it because the workshops there are the ones that are used for those people who do mending things.
On the BBC, yeah, whatever it's called. What's it called?
Yeah. He's in prison, isn't he?
Yeah,
yeah, I think he is now.
But so his might come to an end.
Of course he is.
Yeah, gosh.
So, Michael, it's been fabulous listening to all your stories.
Is that all? I was just getting ready to get into action.
Yeah, well, we have a couple of questions to finish up with.
Right.
The first one is to remind us what your next books are, so people can be aware to keep an eye out for them.
Oh, yes. Well, the very next one to come out is going to be this, Pilgrim's War, 19th of November. And it's the first half of the journey of the First Crusade on their way to Jerusalem. And I have to say, it's a jolly good read.
So is that the first book of a series then?
That's the first of the Holy Wars series.
Okay,
and it's going to be a series set across effectively two families over the period of the Templars in the Holy Land. And it's going to be looking at the feuding between the two families and very much the rise and fall of the Templars and the other religious orders and the Kingdom of Jerusalem.
Oh, that sounds brilliant.
Something I planned over 20 years ago, and Boldwood are allowing me to carry on with it. So I'm very pleased with Boldwood. They're good girls, good people.
Excellent. And last question then for you. Yeah. What have you been reading or watching at the moment that's not not your own books, but have you been reading or listening to any audiobooks? Or?
I haven't had any time to watch anything for months. I literally haven't watched any TV this year. The only thing I ever see are the occasional film. Last film I saw, I've managed to find it, was a film that I watched on Saturday, which is called Vanishing Act.
Okay.
An old Elliot Gould film.
Wow.
And it's quite brilliant. I love it. I'm not going to say anything about it because it's quite a good convoluted plot. It had the first of the Superman women in it. Can't remember what her name is. The original Lois Lane with the Christopher Reeve series.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember her name.
Elliot Gould were two of the lead actors, and the other one was one of the guys from MASH. Very good little film. In terms of books, I've actually recently rediscovered John Creasy, and I'm going through a bunch of his books. But I've written, it's not actually 40, it's nearer 60 books now. And I thought that was pretty good until I was talking to Simon Brett a few weeks ago, and he'd just published his 105th.
I think 60 is pretty good. I think you can take that.
Then I started doing some research, and John Creasy didn't live to be as old as me. He died, well, some years before he reached his 65th birthday, and he wrote over 600.
Wow.
Wow.
If
I
you've
don't
ever
think
met,
they were all perfect quality.
well, have you ever spoken to Griff Hosker, who's publishing at the moment? He started writing in retirement. So he was a teacher, and he started writing in retirement, and so he's now, I think, in his 70s. He's written 180 novels over the last 15 years or something. It's ridiculous. He writes 5,000 words a day, every day, day in, day out. And he's written, it's just incredible. You have a look him up, Griff Hosker.
Yeah, I know of him.
And he's a really nice, really lovely guy. He's been on the podcast. He was very inspirational because you kind of think, oh, this guy's going to be a hack. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's written so many books so quickly. And then he's like a lovely guy, obviously knows his stuff. He obviously researches and travels to places. And he's just incredibly prolific and got a lot of ideas.
Another one like Paul Doherty then.
Yeah.
He's similar sort of ilk, isn't he? I always was impressed with Paul because when I was talking to him the first time, he said that he always used to dictate his books on his way to school because he was running one of the biggest comprehensive schools in Essex at the time, but he had a fairly long commute, so he could dictate on the way in, he'd dictate on the way home, and every day he'd throw these tapes at his secretary and she'd type them all up, and then she got 40% of the profits. Which I thought was delightful.
You're very generous.
Instead of work sharing.
Yeah, very generous as well. Yeah.
Pay by the hour, much cheaper.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, that's on that note. I'm not paying you by the hour, by the way, Justin. I'm sorry. Yeah. Or you're not getting any percentage. What's going on? Yeah,
you told me it was by the 5 minute.
Yes, well, you get
I used to sell for the legal profession. There it is over 15 minutes.
You get the sum total of nothing every 5 minutes. It's perfect. Yes, every 5 minutes you get the same.
That's not fair. When we meet up, you did buy me a glass of wine. I remember.
That's true. Yes. Wow. You see, you said you didn't have a good memory, but that's a good memory. Anyway, it's been a pleasure having you on again, and I'm sure we'll see you again sometime.
I certainly hope so. Thanks a lot for that. It's been really enjoyable, especially while I'm getting over this blasted cold. So you managed the coughs and sniffles.
Yeah, you managed to get through it most of it without coughing too much. So yeah, well done. And perhaps you can go and have a glass of wine now to lubricate the throat.
I think whiskey's calling. I've got to just tell you as a wind up to this, but for the last month and a half, we've had complete renovation of our kitchen because our cooker.
I saw some of that stuff on social media. Yeah,
a cooker fell apart. It leaked kerosene all over the kitchen floor, so we had to replace everything. Because we had to replace the central heating system, we had to replace the cooking system. So basically, it meant the whole kitchen had to go. So that was trashed in a day, and then it was a case of trying to put everything back together. And you would not believe how much dust you can get.
Oh my Lord!
Yeah.
Even though I've cleaned this room, I don't know how many times, but I've been trying to work here while the fridge has been in that corner of my office, the coffee machine and the tea for all the builders has been there, and I think that's part of the reason why this cough got so bad, because it's just dust everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
not help with the dog wagging her tail, is
it? But the kitchen's fixed now, and nearly.
The latest thing is that we've discovered that we can't use one of the ovens. We bought 2 ovens, or the hob, because the electrician made a slight miscalculation. That means we've got to replace the whole of the board. The electrics. Oh no, not that as well.
Oh dear. Well, best of luck, and it sounds like you have more luck in the Middle Ages in the First Crusade.
Right. Maybe there'll be a dead electrician in one of your novels.
Yes. I mean, let's not be silly. I mean, I'll call him Sparky, and he might get murdered.
Sounds good. Right. Well, hopefully there'll be no historical fiction novelists, getting murdered in your book, because we've treated you nicely. So I'll buy you another glass of wine next time I see you, or a whiskey. So, best of luck.
Thanks a lot, guys.
With all your
really good fun.
Dozens of Michael. Books that you've got coming up. With you. Best of luck, and see you again soon.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye. Good value in a pub. As I have spent a little bit of time with him, as I said, in the Devon thing down the pub, and also met him in Wrexham as well. I remember the first time in the Carnival of Words there. And again, we definitely ended up in the pub as well. And yeah, he's very good raconteur, sitting in the pub, having a glass of wine and a chat.
Yeah, and 60 books. I'm somewhat in awe of that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
3 or 4 a year, that is a serious workload.
Yeah, I mean, it drives me crazy because people sort of say to me that I write fast. I mean, you say to me that you've said to me, "Oh, you write fast," and I feel like I kind of write in bursts. You know, I can write fast in a burst, but I'm struggling at the moment to jump onto this sort of treadmill. I feel it like a treadmill. Like I'm going to jump onto this next book, and it's like a treadmill I know that I can't get off of until I finish this next book, and that's going to be.
Well, you got to start it first.
Yeah, we've got to start it, but I feel it's sort of gearing up, and then once I'm on it, and I think the reason that I'm reticent to start is because I know that once I start, it's like that's it. You know, until 3 or 4 or 5 months down the line, that's it. And when I get off the other end, for me, my favorite moment is finishing that first draft and thinking, oh my goodness, I've got a story, I've done it now. that's the major bit of work done, and I just can't imagine doing 4 a year. Because you're having to then you have to write. Well, he did say it's at one point 3 or 4 weeks of intense writing, and then he sets it aside and he comes back to edit it. So if he's basically writing a whole novel in a month or 6 weeks or something, I'm guessing he must do really if he's getting 4 done in a year.
Yeah,
and then do some editing and polishing. But it's
not how I write.
Well, I just can't. I can't write that fast. It's just my brain doesn't work that fast, I think, and so you've got to do what you got to do, and you've got to write the speed you can write. So, as I say, Griff Hosker does his 5,000 words a day. I've only once in my entire writing career remember writing more than 5,000 words in one day.
Yeah, I think I've done that, but if I get to 2,500, I'm very happy.
Yeah, I mean 5,000 is very uncommon for me. As I say, I remember it was in book 5. And it was right towards the end of the book, and I sort of finished the day, and I looked and said, "Wow, I've done 6,000 words."
Yeah.
And for me, that was just like amazing. I mean, I spent the whole day writing, but I dictated some of it as well. I was using Dragon Naturally Speaking software at the time, and I was trying to use that, and that did speed me up and meant I could do a lot more words in a day.
And do you speak in a similar way to the way you write?
Well, you have to try to. You're basically just dictating it. It's putting the words on the screen. But I actually managed to lose that software. I changed computers a while ago, and I didn't work out how. I didn't think about it. I didn't uninstall it properly and then reinstall it, and I've kind of lost it. And it's quite expensive now, the newer versions. And I'm thinking, I can't be bothered. But it was actually quite useful. Whenever I was getting stuck and a bit sort of felt up against it, I'd sort of think, let's just dictate that, and I'd sometimes use it for things like articles and things like that I felt didn't need to be it's not so literary, and I could just sort of be more conversational. It was very quick to do an interview or something, one of these printed interviews for things like that. So maybe one day I'll look into getting it again. But anyway, was that your first experience with Michael Jecks?
Mine, yeah, it was. I've not come across him before. I haven't read his books either. I know his name from the interwebs, but they're very interesting.
Well, he's got 60 to choose from, so next time you're stuck, we haven't got something to read, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for today's episode, everybody. We hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave a review and subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening or watching it. Thanks to all of our patrons, and special shout out to our Patreon producers, Adam Turner, Ben Mayer, Andy Maxwell, Ben Fox, Daryl Hare, George Johnson, and Matt Muller. The list is expanding. Get your name in there too.
You can sign up for our Patreon supporters, or if you prefer, leave us a tip by following the link in the show description.
Until next time, a Rock, Paper, Swords, it's goodbye from me, Matthew Harffy.
And it's goodbye from me, Justin Hill.
And remember, whatever action and adventure you have going on in your life, be kind.
Stay safe.
And happy reading.